Oh, go ahead.
I'm just saying, sure, I'm happy to share those. Yeah, feel free to start. Sorry, Joe. Yep.
Oh, yeah, no worries. And I'll just nudge you to prompt to the next slide. Uh, the first thing that I want to first, I want to thank you for inviting me and some of the other ActivitySim partners here to talk to you about the project. It's a project that has been going on for quite a while, and I think has really reached kind of a level of success that I think I suspect far exceeded even the instigators' earliest wishes. So if you could move to the next slide. What I'd like to do first is just start by talking to you a little bit about the motivation for the project. So, the first activity-based models that became used in the United States were really first developed about a little bit more than 25 years ago, or just about 25 years ago. And the early adopters of these models and the early developers, really each region was basically, while there were certain models, kind of families that were being deployed in different regions, there was a lot of very bespoke software development that was being done in order to implement that in any given region. And this was for individual agencies quite expensive because they were basically paying for all of this, bespoke work. But it wasn't just that there were drawbacks kind of economically. There were also limitations that were being, that were arising as a result of this. So, for example, software improvements, maybe it's a bug fix, maybe it's a performance enhancement, they couldn't really be easily shared by agencies because they were not all working from a common code base. Um, Also, methodological improvements, changes to the actual structures of the models or functions or features within the models also couldn't easily be transferred. They could be transferred, but it took a lot of time and it took extra money. So some visionary MPO colleagues, if you could advance to the next slide, came up with a solution, which was, why don't we do our model software development collaboratively? Let's work off a common platform, a common code base. Let's do decision making around this common code base being led by the member agencies themselves through kind of discussion and prioritization. Let's make this happen by pooling our funding, and let's keep it flexible. Like, we know this is going to take some time to do it. So we've set up contracts, but we're going to then shift over to issuing kind of task orders to get the work completed in a way that is, kind of dynamically flexible and responsive to the needs that we see today. So if you could advance to the next slide. The project has always been guided by a set of objectives. One, and you've probably picked up on this already in some of my first slides, that it's collaborative. We want to be together, working on a common platform and using a code base that's shared by everybody. And we want it to be cost effective. We don't want this to make it more expensive. And in fact, there's no reason why it should be. There should be reduced development and maintenance costs through the kind of economies of scale and pooling our funding. We also want it to be practical. It's not a research project. It's a real tool that really needs to be used by modelers of all different skill levels, and we want it to be able to produce good results for a wide range of agencies and users. But as we all know, not every region is exactly the same. So there, of course, there has to be customization that is responsive to the unique needs of each regions. The Seattle region is different than the Portland, Oregon region is different from the San Diego region. And because no one likes to get up in front of a bunch of peers and hear them complaining about how long it takes to run the model, we really want it to be efficient. We want it to be performant. We want it to run fast, be able to run on reasonably sized hardware, because that not only, it basically allows us to do our work more efficiently. So these objectives have always guided the project. If you could advance to the next slide. I'm going to give you just a very brief history of the project now and kind of how we manage the work, because we've really been successfully collaborating for about 12 years now. The project was initiated by folks from Atlanta Regional Council, MTC in the Bay Area, and SANDAG. These are the three MPOs for Atlanta, the San Francisco Bay Area region, and San Diego. But the first software development contract happened in 2014, and we've been doing it every year since then. The process is really, each year agencies contribute annually to the pooled fund and collectively set the priorities for that year. So if you've pitched in money, you get a chance to make a choice and influence the priorities for the development. And then the Zephyr Foundation, and I actually failed to introduce myself. My name is Joe Castiglione, and I'm the executive director of the Zephyr Foundation. This is a new role for me. I've actually just spent the last 10 years prior to this as the Deputy Director for Technology, Data, and Analysis for San Francisco County Transportation Authority, and I've been doing activity-based models for about 25 years. So basically, Zephyr now facilitates the coordination and provides that kind of administrative support, entering into contracts, issuing task orders, collecting funds, and distributing those funds. But importantly, as I said earlier, all of the agency partners really participate in the decision-making process, and we're, of course, always welcome and want to grow and welcome new agencies. The way that we structure the work, and if you could advance to the next slide, is primarily through a project management committee. And that project management committee is comprised of agency staff. And the project management committee sets the development priorities and provides the kind of technical direction for the overall project. And what we're really working on now, and I think the maturity of the software, is really trying to implement the advanced state of the practice features that we have, or that we want rather. Again, while the platform can certainly be used for research, most importantly, it needs to be a reliable tool for practitioners. We're always, of course, interested, and we have, as other folks have particularly highlighted in some of the discussions earlier this morning, we live in this period of really a lot of change in travel behavior, a lot of change in transportation and travel policies and investment priorities. And so we always want to be responsive to these kind of evolving needs. We do this, as I said, annually. And we continue, we have high level of interaction with each other, both amongst the agencies that are participating as well as the consultants. We have 2 meetings every week, one that's focused on the kind of broader issues and often sometimes administrative issues, and the second that's really focused on the engineering. So if you could proceed to the next slide. Very briefly, we have right now contracts with 5 consultancies to provide services to the consortium. And we do task order issues are issued about 2 or 3 times a year, depending on what the needs are in any given year. If you could proceed to the next slide. This is the way that we've structured ourselves. So this is actually the teams. We've always had a project management committee, but the teams themselves is something that we're working on for the first time this year. The project management committee you see in the kind of lavender color is comprised of all of the agency staff. Within that, there's a subset of agency staff that comprise the executive team. They help provide the kind of overall decision making and kind of direction setting. And then there are 2 other teams that also meet. The product and community team, which is led by Bhargava Sana, who you'll hear from shortly. That's really trying to figure out what it is, what the ActivitySim product should be, and what the development priorities should be. It's mostly led by agency staff, although it involves and includes both agency and consultant staff. And then there's the engineering team. And the engineering team is much more like the technical details of how this can be implemented, all this work that we desire to do. I mean, it's pretty much, it is led by one of the consultants, but also their agency staff that participate. If you could advance to the next slide. I'm not going to walk you through this entire ActivitySim workflow, but what it is intended to illustrate is how we have in these colors the different kinds of roles that we have, everything from Zephyr providing administrative support at the bottom in orange, through the various colored teams in the middle to the consultants at the top in blue who are actually doing most of the work, the vast majority of it. And this is meant to illustrate how we start in the lower left with some development goals for that given year, informed not only by a multi-year roadmap that the consortium maintains, but also responsive to what the needs may be in a given year because of the way things are changing so fast. It is a highly iterative process where we kind of hand off information, get feedback, and kind of work amongst these other teams, and ultimately results in the work being completed and Zephyr paying the invoices at the end. If you could advance to the next slide. Everything that is, ActivitySim is an open source project. I do want to just make the point that open source software is not free software. We do have to pay for the development and the maintenance of all of this. And I think it's important to remind folks of this. But by virtue of being open source, everything truly is open. You can go to the ActivitySim repo and look at all of the code, all of the issues, all of the discussions that are happening. As participating partners, you also have access to all of the other collateral and project resources that we've developed over the last 12 years. That's all maintained in the kind of Google suite. So transparency, not just for in the spirit of doing business transparently, but also so that there are lots of eyeballs and lots of opportunities for people to review the methods and to make their contributions. If you could advance to the next slide. I'm going to very quickly talk to you about what we're doing in the current round, which is our phase 11C of development. It's pretty exciting. We're getting to now develop some additional and expand our documentation to include an application and analysis guide, which is importantly structured around not just how to do things, but some guidance on when it's appropriate to do things, how to talk to decision makers about what are reasonable and perhaps unreasonable applications of the model. We're also making some updates to the telecommute frequency models. This was something that was again discussed this morning. There's actually a lot of work going on right now with respect to telecommute, both making some updates to our existing telecommute frequency models, but also beginning to implement, and it won't be fully implemented in this phase, a much more explicit representation of how people telecommute, who is specifically telecommuting on any given day, and what the implications of that are for their other travel behaviors. There's some other really cool stuff that's going on under the hood too, which is basically implementing and refining some of the work on explicit error terms, which is another way of making discrete choices from probability distributions. So most models up to this point have used Monte Carlo simulation, but there are challenges with that. Simulation variation and the need to run large numbers of simulations until you get stable results. Explicit error terms is one solution to that. And in concert with that, a number of other performance enhancements are also being made with respect to random number generation and sampling. And then finally, there's some neat work that's going on. Model calibration has typically been a very manual process, and an initial stage of kind of partial model auto calibration features are being developed and implemented by the consultants. If you could advance to the next slide. Right now, the community has 14 participating paying members. 11 of them are MPOs here in the United States, but we also have the states that include Sydney and Melbourne, New South Wales and Victoria down in Australia, as well as TransLink, which is the planning agency and transit operator up in Vancouver, British Columbia. You know, one thing I want to emphasize about community is that it's not just a community which is sharing resources and collaborating on development with all of the benefits that result from that, but it's also a real community. So folks come to these meetings, and we meet, as I said, quite frequently, twice a week. You don't have to come to every meeting, but if you're interested, you can, and it is an opportunity for agencies, and this happens quite frequently, to come to the consortium and say, you know, I have this issue, or I have this problem, or I've observed this thing. What are you doing about that? And so it truly is a community that is not just a fiscal or financial collaboration, but really a collaboration of minds. I will say, though, the community does need to have, contributing members. Software development, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, is not a one and done deal. That may be where a lot of the initial effort is, but there's a constant need to address bug fixes, to maintain and stay up to date on dependencies and libraries, to perennially pursue performance enhancements, all those sorts of things. So I really do hope, although ODOT was originally a contributor for some number of years, it hasn't been contributing. I hope that you guys will come back into the family and be contributors to the project as well. If you could advance to the next slide, there are a few ways if you're interested in learning more. Certainly you can come and attend meetings. You can talk to member agency staff. We typically get anywhere from 15 to 30 or 35 people on our calls every single week. You can check out the repo. It's all totally open. You can download and run an example model if you're interested. And then you can contact either the organization or me or my ActivitySim partner and former colleague, Bhargava Sana at SANDAG, who I'm now actually going to hand the mic over to, as they say, to talk to you a little bit about SANDAG's experience with ActivitySim. And then I think at the end, if there's time permitting, I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks so much,
So
Joe. And
if you could advance to the next slide too. Oh, great. You already did. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Joe. And thank you all for this opportunity. I'm Bhargava Sana. I manage the travel model development group at San Diego Association of Governments. And as Joe mentioned, we've been one of the founding members and have been associated with the consortium for a pretty long time. And in 2024, we have been able to put the ActivitySim based model, which we call ABM3, into production. And I'm very happy to announce that late last year, we adopted our 2025 regional transportation plan using the ActivitySim based model. So it is real, it is in production, it's been used successfully for our most recent regional transportation plan. We are all in on it. We are, that's the one and only model we are putting all our resources behind. So and we've already started on the next set of improvements. And the other thing I think I want to highlight is I found that there's definitely a learning curve when you move to a new model, but I've in my staff I've seen that people have been able to pick this up relatively quickly, especially if they are experienced and comfortable with Python. So so yeah, it's been it's a pretty mature software, and there's I think pretty good documentation as well. So that's really helpful. Finally, I think I just want to reiterate the collaboration, the nature of that, which I think Joe has highlighted. And the example is improving handling of telecommuting and work at home episodes. And so it just makes us we really appreciate that there's a lot of discussion, but also we are relying on a wealth of knowledge and experience both across the different agencies in the public agencies in the consortium, but also the consultants. So it's not, I mean, we feel a lot more confident going ahead and adopting a new feature developed by the consortium as opposed to just SANDAG working with one consultant trying to make a feature improvement. So that's really helpful, and we appreciate that a lot. So with that, I think I'll just close it at this point. Again, just like Joe, I would welcome you all to engage with the project. It's all in the public repository on GitHub. You can see all the great things that are under development, and yeah, feel free to check it out.
Well, yes, thank you both. And I was also going to invite Alex to see if there's anything he might want to add from our past experiences as contributing partners. And I know that you are consistently involved.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would be new to this group. I would just echo what Bhargav focused on about being all in. I think this group is aware that in approximately 2018, 2019, we stopped putting development dollars into our trip-based model into the CT ramp-based ABM, and so we've been committed, and our intent was to be a committed partner throughout, for the long game, and we're in a hopefully temporary situation here where it's been very difficult for us financially to be a partner, but I think that is temporary. I'm not sure if probably just go to questions.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Again, thank you all.